Hi everyone, my name is Margaret.
And I'm Zohal.
And today we're going to be talking about an I-601 waiver that was recently approved.
So what we had to argue was that our client would suffer extreme hardship if her spouse was deported back to Guatemala. So let's get into it.
So for this case, we filed it all the way back in January of 2021, and we just got the approval notice in April 2024. We basically used many different arguments. We had to talk about the emotional hardship that they were going to experience. We talked about the financial hardship. She had some medical underlying issues as well. So we had to talk about their entire love story from beginning to end and show just how united of a couple they were.
They really had a really cute love story. They had known each other by time when we filed. They had known each other for about 23-ish years. They had 2 kids together, both really young kids. Does it help a lot when they have especially young children together?
I think having children is definitely helps to strengthen the case. It's not necessary, but of course it's easier to argue that, now you have arguments about how children would suffer. And as you mentioned, their love story goes way back, all the way back to Guatemala. They met when they were like 8 years old, and she had a lot of basically responsibility as a young woman. She was taking care of her siblings. And he kind of like stepped in very early on and took on this like paternal role and really just helped her take care of her siblings. And then they really began building a life back in their home country of Guatemala.
In terms of the financial, how did you guys prove that if he were to be deported and she stayed in the U.S., how did you prove that she would still have financial hardship?
As you mentioned, they started a business together. They had both used all of their life savings to invest in their business, which I think was close to $30,000. Basically, the U.S. citizen, she was like the administrative support, but her husband was really the one with like the knowledge and the experience. So it was basically arguing that without him, the business would not be able to move forward.
So in other I-601A cases that I've seen, we always show that the citizen would suffer some type of medical hardship, whether it's mental illness, depression, anxiety, things like that. Was there anything similar to that in this case?
She already was diagnosed with depression, and then she had a few medical conditions. I do remember there was a few things that we listed in regards to medical hardship, and then we also had to do some thorough research to talk about basically like the lack of resources that they would have in Guatemala. We basically show that everything is kind of intertwined. If your finances are falling apart, then your emotional health is going to fall apart. And so it's basically showing that ripple effect that will happen once that spouse is deported.
With this case, what really stood out to me was there was a lot of research done on if she moved to Guatemala with her husband, what she would suffer and what her kids would suffer.
Yeah, and that actually brings me back to a point, which is that we like to argue both scenarios. So I think you have the option to argue that if the client was to leave and they were separated, that the U.S. citizen would suffer extreme hardship. For I-601 waivers, we do like to show both scenarios. Like, so if they were to separated, what their life would look like. And then we also write about if she was to go with him to Guatemala, we also showcase how that would equally be terrible. They really are deserving of this happy ending, and we're just happy to be part of that process.
If you or anyone you know is going through something similar, feel free to reach out, but otherwise, thank you for watching. Bye.